imagine waking up in the morning. The sun is rising, the world looks peaceful. But what if the first few minutes of your morning quietly open doors you never intended to open? An X-Witch once revealed something shocking. The easiest time to influence someone's mind and spirit is the first moments after they wake up. She claimed many people unknowingly practice habits that weaken their spiritual guard. Now, whether you see this spiritually, psychologically, or symbolically, one truth remains. How you start your morning shapes the direction of your entire day and sometimes even your life. Today, I want to share 3 morning mistakes she warned about, and more importantly, what we can learn from them to build a stronger, healthier mindset. Most people think the moment they wake up is just another ordinary part of the day, but in reality, it is one of the most powerful and vulnerable moments of the human mind. An ex-witch once described mornings as a strange doorway, a quiet bridge between two worlds, the world of sleep and the world of full awareness. She explained that when a person first wakes up, their mind has not yet built the mental walls that normally protect their thoughts throughout the day. In those first few minutes, the brain is soft, impressionable, and unusually open. Imagine a house with its doors unlocked just after dawn, before anyone has checked the locks or closed the windows. That is how the mind often is in the early morning. Psychologists describe something very similar. When we wake up, our brain operates in slower brainwave states known as alpha and theta waves, the same states connected to imagination, deep emotion, and the subconscious mind. It is the reason dreams feel so vivid when we first wake up, and why a single thought in the morning can linger in our mind for hours. What enters your mind in those early moments does not simply pass through like an ordinary thought. Instead, it sinks deeper, almost like planting a seed in a freshly watered soil. The ex-witch explained that many people unknowingly allow the wrong seeds to be planted during this powerful window of time. She claimed that when someone wakes up confused, distracted, or mentally unguarded, their mind becomes easy to influence, not necessarily by supernatural forces alone, but by anything that carries emotional weight: fear, anger, anxiety, comparison, or negativity. Think about how many mornings begin today. A person wakes up, their eyes barely open, and the first thing they reach for is their phone. No pause, no silence, no moment to collect themselves, just instant noise from the outside world. Notifications begin to appear like tiny knocks on the door of the mind. Messages, headlines, comments, alerts. Before the brain even understands what the day will be about, it is already reacting, already processing problems that may not even belong to that person, already absorbing emotions that started somewhere else. The ex-witch once said, something that surprised many people who listened to her story. She said that influencing a person does not require complicated rituals or dark ceremonies. Often it only requires one thing: access to their thoughts at the right moment. And the easiest moment, she claimed, is the moment just after someone wakes up, because that is when the mind has not yet chosen what kind of day it wants to have. It is still undecided, still forming its emotional direction. Think about the morning when you woke up, and immediately saw something stressful, maybe a negative message, a shocking piece of news, or a problem waiting for you. That single moment probably changed the emotional color of your entire day. Suddenly your energy dropped, your patience became thinner, your focus scattered. One moment created a ripple that followed you for hours. But now imagine the opposite. Imagine waking up and allowing a few moments of calm before anything enters your mind. Just breathing slowly, letting the mind wake up naturally. Maybe thinking about something you are grateful for, something you look forward to, or simply enjoying the quiet before the noise of the world begins. In that situation, the same mind that could be easily influenced becomes something very different. It becomes centered. It becomes steady. And when the world finally starts sending its messages and distractions, they hit a mind that is already awake, aware, and prepared. The ex-witch warned that the first mistake people make in the day. Morning is feeding their mind negativity before it has even had a chance to stand up and breathe. She said that negative energy does not always arrive in dramatic ways. Often it arrives quietly through ordinary habits that seem harmless. She would watch people wake up and immediately scroll through social media, diving into a flood of comparisons, arguments, bad news, and emotional chaos before they had even left their bed. It was like watching someone drink polluted water first thing in the morning and expecting their body to feel healthy afterwards. She explained that the mind, especially in the early hours, absorbs emotions faster than logic. That means if the first things a person sees are anger, fear, jealousy, or negativity, those emotions start shaping their mindset long before they consciously realize it. Science actually supports this idea more than many people realize. Researchers have found that consuming negative information early in the morning can increase stress. Hormones like cortisol, which makes the brain more reactive and less focused. It creates a subtle tension in the mind, almost like starting the day with a storm cloud hovering overhead. The ex-witch described it in a way that sounded almost like a story. She once said she watched people unknowingly prepare themselves for bad days by the way they started their mornings. A person would wake up, scroll through alarming news, read an angry comment, compare their life to someone else's highlights. Real. And within minutes, their mood had shifted from calm to restless. Nothing had physically happened yet. The day had barely begun. Yet mentally, the person was already exhausted, already frustrated, already defensive. She believed that when someone begins the day with negative input, it weakens their mental clarity. Not because they are weak, but because the brain is designed to react strongly to danger and negativity. It is a survival instinct, thousands of years ago paying attention to. Danger helped humans stay alive. But in the modern world, that same instinct can be triggered by a simple headline or a comment from a stranger on the internet. Suddenly, the brain believes something is wrong, even when the day itself might be full of opportunity. She described the morning mind like a blank page waiting to be written on. But many people allow the world to grab the pen before they do. The first story written on that page might be fear, comparison, stress, or anger. And once that emotional tone is written, everything else that happens during the day is interpreted through that lens. A small inconvenience feels bigger. A minor problem feels overwhelming. A simple disagreement feels like a personal attack. The mind, already filled with tension, begins to react instead of respond. But what fascinated many people about her warning was not the fear behind it, but the realization that the same doorway that allows negative influence also allows powerful positive influence. The mind is truly that open in the morning, then it means those moments hold incredible power. It means a person who protects their morning thoughts is quietly building mental strength before the world even begins testing them. Instead of letting negativity rush in, they choose what enters their mind first. They might begin with silence, with reflection, with prayer, with gratitude, or simply with a moment of intentional breathing. These small actions might look ordinary from the outside, but internally they change the direction of the day. The mind that wakes up slowly and consciously becomes far harder to disturb. Instead of reacting to every emotional signal from the outside world, it begins to observe, to think clearly, to stay steady even when chaos appears. And this is where the story becomes even more interesting. Because the ex-witch believed that the real difference between people who feel constantly overwhelmed and people who seem calm and in control often begin in a place. Yay. Most people ignore completely the quiet, unnoticed minutes right after the eyes open in the morning. There was something else the ex-witch used to observe about people that fascinated her, and it had nothing to do with mysterious rituals or strange symbols. It was something far more ordinary and far more powerful. She noticed that many people wake up and simply drift into the day as if they were passengers rather than drivers. Their alarm rings, they open their eyes, and within minutes they are already reacting to whatever the world throws at them. A message arrives, they respond. A problem appears, they worry. A demand shows up, they rush to fix it. But at no point do they pause and ask themselves a simple question. Asterisk, what kind of day do I want to create today? Asterisk, the ex-witch used to say that the absence of intention is like leaving your house with the door wide open. You might not notice at first, but eventually something unwanted walks in. She once described the morning she remembered very clearly. She had watched a group of people begin their day in a crowded city street. Everyone looked busy, everyone looked determined, yet something about them seemed strangely disconnected. They were walking quickly, but their minds looked scattered, pulled in 10 different directions by notifications, worries, and responsibilities. No one seemed to be guiding their own attention. It was as if their thoughts were being dragged along by the loudest voice in the room. She realized, yay, that many people live this way not because they are careless, but because they never learned the power of starting the day with a clear intention. When someone wakes up without deciding what truly matters to them that day, the mind becomes vulnerable to every distraction that appears. One unexpected message can ruin the mood. One stressful thought can take over the entire morning. One small problem can suddenly feel like the center of the universe. Without intention, the mind behaves like a ship, without a compass, drifting wherever the waves push it. But when someone takes even a few quiet moments to set an intention, something remarkable begins to happen. The mind slowly shifts from reaction to direction. Instead of asking, "What is happening to me today?" the person begins asking, "What am I going to focus on today?" The ex-witch used to say that intention acts like an invisible shield around the person's attention. When your purpose is clear, distractions lose much of their power. Problems still appear, responsibilities still exist, but they no longer control the emotional atmosphere of your day. Think about a person who wakes up and quietly decides that today they will focus on patience, growth, or kindness. That single decision begins shaping their awareness before the day even begins. When a stressful situation arises, the mind remembers its intention and pauses instead of exploding with frustration. When a distraction appears, the mind recognizes it and returns to what truly matters. It is almost as if the person has programmed their mental compass before stepping outside into the noise of the world. The ex-witch explained that many people underestimate this simple practice because it looks too small to be powerful. They imagine that transformation requires dramatic change, when in reality the direction of a life can shift through the smallest daily choices. A quiet minute of intention can influence hours of thought, emotion, and behavior. It is like adjusting the steering wheel of a car by just a few degrees. At first, the road looks the same, but miles later, the destination is completely different. She had seen people who never set intentions become prisoners of their own habits, repeating the same emotional patterns every day without realizing it. But she had also seen something else: individuals who began their mornings with purpose slowly becoming calmer, stronger, and more focused than those around them, almost as if they were walking through the same world but experiencing a completely different reality. But there was another mistake she warned about, and in her mind it was even deeper than the lack of intention. She said many people wake up and prepare their bodies for the day, but they completely forget to prepare their minds and spirits. They brush their teeth, wash their face, drink their coffee, and rush out the door, yet they never take a moment to ground themselves internally. To her, this was like a warrior stepping onto a battlefield wearing ordinary clothes instead of armor. Because whether people realize it or not, every day contains challenges that test their emotional strength. Stressful conversations, unexpected problems, moments of fear, temptation, doubt, comparison, criticism. These things appear in ordinary life more often than people expect. The ex-witch had traveled through different cultures and communities, and one pattern caught her attention again and again. In many parts of the world, people begin their mornings with some form of grounding practice. Some pray quietly, some meditate, some repeat positive affirmations, some simply sit in silence and breathe deeply for a few minutes. On the surface, these rituals may look simple, almost unimportant, but she believed they served a powerful purpose. They anchored the mind before the chaos of the day arrived. Imagine walking into a crowded marketplace where hundreds of voices are shouting at the same time. If your mind is already restless, those voices quickly overwhelm you. But if you enter with calm awareness, the noise no longer controls your emotions. Grounding practices work in a similar way. They create a center inside the mind, a stable point that does not easily collapse when pressure appears. The ex-witch once described a conversation she had with someone who constantly felt emotionally drained. The person complained that every small problem ruined their mood, and that they felt mentally exhausted by the end of each day. She asked them a simple question: how do you prepare your mind before the day begins? The person looked confused. They had never considered that preparation might even be necessary. For years they had simply woken up and rushed directly into responsibilities, believing that productivity meant moving as quickly as possible. But speed without grounding often leads to instability. When the mind has not been centered in the morning, it reacts impulsively to everything that happens later. A single negative comment can echo in the mind for hours. A mistake can feel like a personal failure instead of a lesson. A stressful moment can spiral into anxiety. The ex-witch believe that grounding practices act like mental armor because they remind the mind who is in control. When someone begins the day with reflection, gratitude, prayer, or mindful breathing, they are not escaping reality. They are strengthening their inner foundation so reality does not shake them as easily. These few, quiet moments create space between a person and their reactions. Suddenly, there is a pause where there used to be instant emotion. There is clarity where there used to be confusion. And slowly, something remarkable begins to happen. The person who once felt constantly overwhelmed starts moving through the same world with a different energy. Challenges still exist, but they no longer feel like attacks. Problems still appear, but they become puzzles instead of threats. The mind begins to realize that strength is not something that appears suddenly in dramatic moments. It is built quietly in the small rituals that prepare us before the day even begins. And the most interesting part of her observation was that the people who practiced these grounding habits rarely talked about them as something extraordinary. To them, it was simply part of waking up, just as natural as opening their eyes and taking their first breath. Yet the calm focus they carried throughout the day made others wonder what invisible advantage they seemed to possess. At some point in her journey, the ex-witch realized something that surprised even her. The habits that protected people from negative influence were not complicated or mystical. In fact, they were often so simple that many people ignored them. She began to notice that the difference between someone who constantly felt overwhelmed and someone who seemed calm and in control was often hidden in the smallest routines of the morning. These routines are designed to be used in a variety of settings, from home to business. They looked ordinary on the surface, but they quietly shaped the direction of the entire day. She once explained it using a simple image. Imagine two people waking up at the same time in the same city, under the same sky. Both of them have similar responsibilities, similar problems, and similar opportunities ahead of them. Yet by the end of the day, one person feels exhausted, irritated, and mentally drained, while the other feels focused, productive, and emotionally balanced. What created the difference? In many cases, it began with what they allowed into their minds during the first few minutes of the morning. The ex-witch believed that powerful days are built on intentional habits that replace the small mistakes people often make without thinking. Instead of starting the day with noise, she suggested beginning with silence. Those first moments after waking up are like the opening scene of a story, and whatever fills that scene begins shaping everything that follows. When a person immediately reaches for their phone, the mind is flooded with information before it has even fully awakened. But when someone allows a few minutes of quiet, something interesting happens. Thoughts begin to settle. The mind slowly becomes aware of itself. Breathing deepens. Awareness grows stronger. In that silence, a person regains control of their attention before the outside world tries to claim it. She would sometimes tell people to imagine their attention as a precious resource, like clean water stored in a glass. Every distraction, every notification, every unnecessary worry is like someone taking a sip from that glass. By the middle of the day, the glass is often empty because the person never protected it in the first place. But when silence comes before noise, the glass remains full long enough for the person to decide where that energy should go. Another habit she spoke about was gratitude before stress. It sounded almost too simple when people first heard it, but she had. She watched it transform the way people approach their lives. She explained that the human brain has a strange tendency to search for problems first. It scans the environment for danger, mistakes, or things that might go wrong. This instinct helped humans survive in ancient times, but in modern life it often traps people in a constant state of worry. Many individuals wake up already thinking about unfinished tasks, financial pressure, or problems waiting for them later in the day. Before the morning has even fully begun, their mind is already carrying a heavy emotional load. Gratitude interrupts that pattern. When someone begins the day by intentionally noticing something positive, even something small like the warmth of sunlight, the comfort of a safe home, or the opportunity to try again, the brain shifts its focus. Instead of scanning the world only for threats, it begins recognizing opportunities and blessings that might otherwise remain invisible. The ex-witch once watched a woman who had developed the habit of writing down 3 things she appreciated every morning before starting her day. At first, it felt awkward to her, almost unnecessary. But after weeks passed, something inside her perspective began to change. Situations that once felt overwhelming started looking manageable. Challenges became lessons instead of burdens. It was not because her life suddenly became perfect, but because her mind had learned to see beyond the constant search for problems. Then, there was the habit of purpose before distraction, something the ex-witch believed was becoming increasingly rare in a world full of endless digital noise. She noticed that many people allowed their mornings to be controlled entirely by whatever appeared on their screens. Notifications dictated their priorities. Random information pulled their attention in different directions. Hours passed reacting to things that had little connection to their real goals. But the individuals who seemed most focused did something different. Before diving into the noise of the world, they paused and asked themselves a quiet question: what actually matters today? This question acted like a compass for their attention. It reminded them that time and energy are limited resources that must be directed carefully. When a person begins the day with a clear sense of purpose, distractions lose much of their power. The mind recognizes when something is pulling it away from what truly matters. The ex-witch once described this moment as the difference between drifting through the ocean and steering a boat toward a chosen destination. Without purpose, the currents of distraction push a person wherever they want. With purpose, the same ocean becomes a path instead of a trap. But perhaps the most powerful lesson she tried to share was not about the specific habits themselves. It was about awareness. She often told people that the real battle of the morning is not against demons or mysterious forces, but against unconscious living. Many individuals move through their days on autopilot, repeating the same routines, reacting to the same triggers, and wondering why life feels so heavy or chaotic. They never stop to examine the invisible patterns shaping their thoughts and emotions. The ex-witch believed that awareness is the moment when a person finally sees those patterns clearly. It is the realization that the morning is not just the start of another routine day, but the steering wheel that it determines where that day will go. Once someone becomes aware of that power, their relationship with the morning changes completely. They begin to notice how certain habits affect their mood. They recognize how easily their thoughts can be influenced by the first things they see or hear. Slowly, they start making small adjustments. They protect their attention. They choose what enters their mind first. They replace careless routines with intentional ones. What fascinated her most was that these changes rarely look dramatic from the outside. A person might simply wake up and sit quietly for a moment longer than before. They might take a deep breath instead of immediately checking their phone. They might choose one meaningful goal for the day instead of letting distractions choose for them. Yet over time, these tiny decisions begin shaping something much larger than a single morning. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and slowly a pattern forms. The person who once felt constantly pulled in every direction begins to move with clarity. The mind that used to react to every emotional signal becomes steady and focused, and people around them start noticing the difference, even if they cannot quite explain where it came from. Because the truth hidden in those quiet early moments is that the direction of an entire day, and sometimes even the direction of a life, can begin forming in the first few conscious thoughts that appear after the eyes open. As we come to the end of this journey, one powerful idea remains clear. The way you begin your morning quietly shapes the direction of your entire day. The first few moments after you wake up are not just routine, they are a doorway where your mindset, emotions, and focus begin to form. When those moments are filled with noise, negativity, and distraction, the mind starts the day already scattered. But when they are filled with intention, calm, gratitude, and awareness, something remarkable begins to happen. Your mind becomes stronger, steadier, and more prepared for whatever challenges the day may bring. The story of the ex-witch is not really about fear or mysterious forces. It is about awareness. It reminds us that influence does not always come in dramatic ways. Sometimes it appears through simple habits we repeat every morning without thinking. And once we recognize that truth, we gain the power to change it. By protecting our thoughts, setting our intentions, and grounding ourselves before the noise of the world begins, we take back control of our own direction. So tomorrow morning, when you open your eyes, pause for just a moment. Take a deep breath. Decide what kind of energy you want to carry into the day. Because the small choices you make in those quiet early minutes can shape the story of the entire day ahead. Thank you so much for watching this video and spending your time here. If you enjoyed this content and found it helpful, don't forget to support the channel by liking the video and subscribing. Your support helps us continue creating more powerful and meaningful content for you. Make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming videos. Thank you again for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.